Okay, now this session, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed lunch, enjoyed the entertainment. I have a little entertainment for you to kick this session off because I think it's kind of late in the day. And so what this session is about is defending against sophisticated attacks, which I think is a major issue today. You heard me in my earlier part of the presentation today. And the first thing, well, I want to thank our sponsors again. Again, please go visit their booths. We like to keep our sponsors happy, and I think they have a lot of interesting things to say. But to kick this off, I wanted to show you this little video that I've seen that I kind of enjoy. I hope you can all see it from where you are. Go ahead, Preet. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was a nice break after lunch and all that. But also, I wanted to make a point. And I thought beer was a good choice. That's what appealed to me with the magic trick. But the point of it to me is that if you look at sophisticated attacks, what I'm trying to do here is what's a sophisticated attack? You know, I've used that term a lot and it's easy to use. But one thing I think sophisticated attackers do is kind of like a magician. Now, I've been tricked by people who do magic tricks, and I've just learned I can be outsmarted. It doesn't matter how smart I am, they'll outsmart me. And, you know, so what magicians do, I think, is they kind of understand your weakness, like when they're pulling the magic trick on how they can distract your attention or do whatever to get to distract you. I think attackers do the same thing. They figure out what it is that they can do, like with spear phishing, to get you to open a thing. And then once they understand your weaknesses, they exploit them to gain some kind of access or trust on your part. Then they get into your system, they hide what they're doing while they're doing it, like however he got that beer as he took off that shirt, I don't know, but you kind of can guess, but he's hiding it. And then at the end, they kind of leave without a trace of what they did, so that you can't go back and figure out how did they do it. So I think that's kind of a good example of a sophisticated attacker. It's not the everyday attacker. There's somebody more sophisticated, and I think, a lot of people I talk to agree, you can't protect yourself against that. You can't protect yourself from keeping them out. Doesn't mean you can't deal with it, but you can't keep them out. So now that's one way to define sophisticated attackers. Back about 5 years ago, as I mentioned, we've been doing cybersecurity here for like 9 years. And at one point, you know, I went through and just made a little chart, or I'll show you in a second, but I broke up the kind of attackers. Now, you know, you can break them up different ways, but I just said on the left you have hackers, or general hackers, then you got hacktivists, which you don't see much of that actually. Then you got cyber criminals, terrorists, and unfriendly nations. And if you group those together, if you look at those kinds of attackers, they do different types of attacks. Hackers just send out malware on the internet and hope that anybody will grab it. You know, they want my wife to click on that thing on, you know, on whatever, on MSN or whatever. So they're non-targeted attacks. They're kind of amateurish. There could be also phishing things that you read and you see the English is terrible or it's misspelled and all that kind of stuff. But then you get the cyber criminals. Generally, I think they're well known for being very IT savvy, and they're good IT people, but they may not know anything about what you're doing, and they may not necessarily be cybersecurity people. They're IT savvy people. But those are generally targeted attacks. So now you've gone from an untargeted attack to a targeted attack, and then you get to the targeted attack by people who are paid cybersecurity professionals, very serious people. And you know, that could be terrorists or unfriendly nations. I think today it also includes cyber criminals and things like that. Now, if you look at those kinds of attacks, there's this chart that I put together back in like 2006. And what the chart is the green line is the likelihood that you'll experience an attack like that. And you know, you tend to see a lot more like people, when I was listening to the Fortinet thing, you know, if you take the logs on firewalls, all the things that are blocked, you know, everybody's getting bombarded with stuff. But a lot of it is junk, so you filter it out. But the likelihood of getting a general hacking attack, a non-targeted attack, is much higher than getting something where it's a targeted attack by cyber professionals. So you get a curve that goes down. If you look at the impact of that, so that's the likelihood that you're going to be attacked. The red is something that says what's the impact if you do get attacked. And you know, that goes the other way, right? Particularly in our world. And if you look at that and you say, okay, that's what I'm facing, and how do I defend myself against that? But I think most people talk about is you do risk management. Well, if you look at that picture, the way you do risk management for the ones on the left is you try to minimize the likelihood that an attack, you can't stop that they'll try to attack you, but you can stop them from getting into your system. So it's reducing the likelihood that you'll get a compromise. On the other side, they get in, and notice, the one reason I did that is on the left, the green line's way above the red line. Everybody talks about it's like just multiplied. It's not that simple. It's that kind of a relationship. It's this times that in a way, but not numerically. But anyhow, on the left, the high problem is likelihood. On the right, the high problem is impact. So to manage that risk, you focus on reducing the likelihood to stop the ones on the left. You focus on reducing the impact of whatever may happen on the right. Now, when I made that chart, just coincidentally, and I'm not trying to be real precise, but if you notice, they kind of meet in the middle. They cross in the middle. And that's where you kind of shift strategies. And in 2016, I think most companies have been focused on reducing likelihood. They've always done that. And I think you have to do that either way. It's one of the first things you do. But they weren't too concerned about reducing the impact. Now, if you go to today, what you'll see is those are where the sophisticated attacks are. Up there, that general categories. It's certainly the unfriendly nations. It's probably terrorists. It depends on what you call terrorists of a nation anymore. But a lot of cyber criminals, I think, today are becoming more sophisticated, very sophisticated. So they're kind of that category, which is the impact side for the most part. And if you look at the likelihood today, here's the likelihood today. Again, this is not real data. This is just conceptuals, making the point. Notice it's higher. The risk of a cyber attack, particularly a more sophisticated one, as you get more sophisticated, has definitely gone up. I don't think the impact has changed. If they got into one of your control systems and disrupted the operations, they disrupted the operations. It's pretty much the same as it was, however they would have done it. But notice where it crosses now. And I made the point where the reduced likelihood, reduced impact kind of met where the crossed. Now it's crossing way over by the reduced impact. So that's where I see things shifting, and we see a shift in focus. The past has been focused on stopping the likelihood. Even though everybody worried about impact, they talked about it, there wasn't much done to deal with that. Today, it's much more around that. Now, if you take that idea and you go to our model, the ARC cybersecurity maturity model, if you look, obviously I chose the colors and everything so it lined up right, but that's where we were in 2016. And the things on the left, I didn't go over this in detail. I didn't want to bore you with all these details. But, on the left, it's more things like anti-malware software, application whitelisting, firewalls, data diodes, zone firewalls, things like that, which are really intended to try to keep people from getting in. They're kind of focused on reducing likelihood. On the right are these things like network monitoring solutions. We call them threat detection and response solutions, threat management platforms, threat intelligence, information sharing, which helps to prepare you to know that attacks are coming and things like that. So what's happened is maybe we were there before, and I'm not saying, it varies by industry and everything, what's really adequate. I mean, I would have said to an oil company with a refinery, you better be wall to the right from the beginning. But a lot of other plants you could say should be on the left. Norsk Hydro Aluminum. I would have said if you're in the middle, you're probably okay. I happen to come from that industry, so I know that industry. And I think they could have gotten by. Today, you have to be way over there. But the whole point of that for me and from ARC's perspective is the way what's sophisticated attacks mean defending against them is really shifting. You still have to do the defenses because you don't want to get overwhelmed with things getting into your system, but you have to quickly detect and respond to things that get in your system. And that's the only way you can I don't want to say it's the only way you can reduce impact. I mean, a smart company might look and say, how do I rearrange things? You can do things like isolate things. There's other things you should do, but it's focused on the fact that somebody got in, what can I do that once they get in, how do I make sure they don't minimize the damage? But a key part of that is always going to be quickly respond, detect it, and respond to it. Now, so that was my little presentation. I want to make sure we have time for panel discussion. But we're going to have a panel up here. There's 4 people again. And, the kind of questions I'm hoping, now, I pose the problem, like I said before, I'm an analyst. That's all I'm responsible for is to frame the problem. It's your problem to solve it. So they're going to come up and tell us how to solve this. But the questions I kind of think are important is, you know, are sophisticated attacks really a major concern? You think they need to be a concern today? You heard my opinion, but you know, everybody has different opinions. And I think another one, do you think the companies are really prepared to deal with those? I originally phrased that as your company prepared, but I don't think anybody's going to tell me that. Of course you are, right? You're not going to say, no, we're not prepared. It's like your comment to the, I saw you, the thing you posted on SANS. It was dead on. The fellow asked about, deception, wasn't it? It was a good question. I mean, in the analogy there, somebody asked about deception technology in OT. Is anybody using it, this and that? And Mark came back and said, first of all, if I was, I wouldn't tell you. And the answer to your question is no. I mean, you don't want to tell somebody you have deception technology there. So, but anyhow, the question here is, are they ready to deal with it? And if not, or even with, where else should they be focusing their efforts? You know, I mean, on my maturity model, I say you should be focusing your effort on you know, detection of anomalies, whatever that means. And I don't think it's just network anomalies. It's within endpoints. It might even be behavioral anomalies. You know, however you detect things happening strangely. But then also having in place something that enables you to respond. You know, a lot of people, they go to that one step, mostly driven by the asset inventory stuff today. They go to the step of buying something to detect stuff, but then they don't have any plan for what to do with it when they detect it. You know, that's kind of half-hearted, you know. So anyhow, those are the kind of framework that those are questions I'm hoping that they'll answer, but I'm going to make it so you're free to ask whatever questions you like. So with that said,